Hi there. I'm Chris Lloyd-Jones. I lead platforms and incubation at Avanade.
And I'm Diana Wolfe. I lead research for the Office of the CTO at Avanade.
And last but not least, my name's Fergus Kidd, and I lead our engineering side of research and development.
I think other people are meant to say last but not least.
Well, I wanted to give myself that.
So we're here today to talk about ChatGPT operator and computer using agents, and also to give our best efforts guess on what's ChatGPT operator doing, how does it work, and what we found in our testing over the last couple of months. So yeah, how did you all find it? I found it really helpful at first.
Big emphasis on at first. I think I can sort of pry into what you might be thinking, and you can kind of agree or disagree. I think when you take it out of the box and you start playing with it, you're like, oh my god, look at all the things it can do. But actually, when you finally come across something in your kind of day-to-day where you're like, operator could actually help me, you then realize, actually, I need to babysit it quite a lot. Maybe this isn't the best way to do this. The wall I often hit was, it would be quicker for me as a developer to code the answer than to use operator and take it along that journey.
I had the opposite experience. I found it useless at first. And then after realizing its limitations, I think it just sat in the back of my mind. So I picked it up, was not impressed, then realized what the limitations around it were and how much babysitting was involved. And then as I went through the last, I'd call it 3 weeks of it, I would identify little things that I needed done that it could do. So once I learned the limitations of its capabilities, I just kind of embedded it where it was more adept.
I'm going to ask all of us to expose ourselves a little bit here and show what you may have used operator for. So I'm going to show my ChatGPT operator here. And you can see some of the things that I'm doing vary from personal tasks for my nephews, finding price tickets for Disney World, to the fact which I broke my leg. So I was looking for what calcium supplements are good, all the way to what is my FSA coverage? How do I report potholes in Seattle? I'm setting up a meetup group right now. So having it look at various different meetup group spaces. And I settled eventually on ChatGPT operator for me was best at going through sites where the content may be paywalled or limited from traditional search engines, which is usually things like booking and sites. But if a search engine or another form of API can do it, probably not the best use case. I also found that there are strong limitations with captures and with the fact that a lot of sites are now blocking the use of bots to explore them. How do you all find it?
Yeah, I can share my screen as well. So I have scrubbed almost everything except the use cases I want to talk about. So a few things. I think one point that you made, which is really interesting, is where's that threshold of I need an operator type thing to do something. So this is an example. Something I'm asked to do quite often is add someone to our Azure portal subscription instance and add them to a security group. It's very repetitive. There's lots of buttons to click. And it's where's the limit? If I had 3 or 4 people, this would probably be quicker. But if I had 50 people, it would just be easier to do a batch request in Azure because they have that functionality. It was perfectly capable of doing everything that I asked. Realistically, did it save me any time versus doing that? The time-consuming part was still formatting people's emails correctly. Still, finding the test groups. You can see in the chat there's still a couple of questions. And I guess it kind of matches what you were saying about capture, is that there's a login process. I have to physically stop what I'm doing to go in and log in, and then once I'm through that barrier, I can ask a lot more questions.
I guess MCPs come out for a lot of these things since we got operator. The rest of the world moved on too.
Exactly, and I think that's part of the problem, right? Is you said sites are now blocking these agents and bots. The world continues to move on despite operator. So, and a lot of the times for me, it comes back to, well, I would rather just do this through an API. I would rather just do it through code anyway.
Yeah, that resonates with me because I was thinking through what it feels like to delegate to operator. And it feels like when you ask someone to do a task, but you have to check back rather than full delegation, right? You're not going to be planning contingent on that fully done output. You're planning contingent on, I need to check what it said to give it the next thing.
Mm-hmm. But what about so here's an example where I've asked it to do a very specific task. So this is for a piece of research. We were looking at like loads of different FedEx locations. And what we want is kind of an Excel spreadsheet of all the different addresses so we can load them into a piece of mapping software or something. Probably 110 ways you could do this or start going about it. But I thought, let's use the official FedEx website. You can see there's like hundreds of locations and they're all nested horribly. So I was like, okay, seems like a good one for operator. And you can see what it's done. I actually cut it off early because there's so many, but you can see it's found like 20 London locations, etc., etc., etc. But it's like, when I'm getting lists out like this, where's the limit of what I actually check? Because I know that there's more than 20 FedEx London locations. But it's like, sorry.
So you can't trust the output fully without doing some human verification.
Exactly. And it's like, the more tedious the task, the less likely I am to want to do that verification anyway. So I'd rather know it works.
How about you, Diana? What did you find?
I mean, you're going to share my screen with you. I also purged, not this whole screen. Let me know and you can see it. Here? You can see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I also purged my records, but this morning I was like, let's see if it can help me with the trip I have next week, right? I've got, next Thursday. I was like, I'm going to do my gym. I'm going to Mountain View. I want to view the Vietnamese communities I've been researching in the area in a book I've been reading. And then also I was going to do Salesforce or Anthropic, but I was like, Anthropic would probably be harder to get into. So let's do the Anthropic office and tour the neighborhoods I would like Soma, right? Then eventually, before I could even get off the ground, it's like, I can't submit a high impact decision about others on your behalf. Okay. That's okay. I agree. So then I just went through. It gave me this information. It actually had a really nice recommendation for the Vietnamese community. This one is visit Anthropic office if permissible, right? So then it went through and gave me specific areas, but then I was like, can it get into the Anthropic office for me, right? How can I tour it? It went through this browser where, let's see if it will. It went through this browser where it started to pull up all kinds of just things that I have never really seen it go through for finding the information on a company, which is actually kind of, hold on, where is it in this? It's right, you can still see the browser, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it goes into Anthropic headquarters and then it goes into this business directory website where it starts to find the actual phone number for the Anthropic office and how to get into it. So
what you're saying is it's a bit like an intern who doesn't know what to do.
Exactly. Let me try and return to our chat here. Close this out. So then it just generally says go to info@anthropic.com. That's where we get. So what should I say? Blah, blah, blah. Then I try to throw it a curveball. I'm like, I want to do hot yoga at 5 a.m. Do this. It takes me to this hot yoga studio. It doesn't what I was testing for is it going to ask me where my hotel is? Right? It has no information to be telling me this. It has no information to discern if they're giving me, hot yoga at 6 a.m. if it's 30 miles in San Francisco away from my hotel. It doesn't even ask that. So I give it generally what about Mountain Valley? And it's, here's this generic thing. So it's not incredibly helpful. Wouldn't have saved me more time than necessarily a Google search. So you have to structure it as this incredibly small and niche ask, right? I can't find y'all in my browser. You just structure it as this incredibly small and niche ask. You have to give it all the context. It's not any better than an intern. But if I want it to find me flights and I give it parameters for a budget, it can do that pretty well.
And the use case you're talking through seems like it's a pretty much a one-off thing, right? It's you need to sit down and book it. When what I've been looking at is very repeatable, bite-sized processes where I just need a lot of information out. But I guess that when those processes exist, there's something else to do it for a reason, right? There's some other way to do that.
All three of us taking slightly different things. I think I'm more on the Dana side of things, that I'm going, what the one-shot tasks that I need an AI to do for me that I'm not going to automate. One of those even was find me a Moonpig card. And then I still customized it myself, but it went through, provided me some good choices to look at, just trying to make my life easier. That's kind of
Do you think it made your life easier versus doing a 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 card search?
So I think it did. So I live in the US. I'm from the UK. So 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 actually has a lot of different regional sites. It's got US sites and UK sites, and it bounces you between them. It also has a lot of things that align to my style and a lot that don't. So I cheated. I used a voice dictation when I like these types of cards. I like these types of colors. Find me a card. And I let it run and came back in 20 minutes. And the three I got were really good. If I'd had to do that, I would have got frustrated.
Okay. So does that come down to like
About the card.
maybe that comes down to personal preference? It's like, what would you rather spend your time doing? Telling operator what to do or just looking at the cards you know won't be any good?
Well, let's talk about where the expectations we entered this, like what we thought operator would do. Where did those expectations come from?
When I saw the research and I saw the original paper from OpenAI, I came in with slightly higher expectations. I thought computing as the agents would have a much better understanding of user interfaces than I saw. I saw the agent get stuck on drop-downs. Click the drop-down disappeared. Click the drop-down. And I had to intervene a lot more than I expected. I thought it was going to be set and forget. But then on the flip side, I found operator could understand the content of the page better than I expected. So I almost expected the converse of what I found.
Do you think that's to do with like your background in RPA though? Because I think I had similar expectations where I thought I was actually going to have to lead operator by showing it the tasks like we'd expect to with like an RPA platform.
Could be true because RPA is so advanced in understanding UI because it's using things like Playwright and the like. Whereas my understanding of a lot of computer using agent models is they are ingesting the screen image. They are then segmenting it down to clickable areas. And they don't actually have the understanding of the underlying HTML an RPA agent might. So I think actually we've gone backwards in some ways and we're applying a lot of machine learning energy to things where we have existing tools like Playwright, for example.
I think I can prove your point there slightly in that so we were using this FedEx example before, right, where we collect addresses, and I'll just make this as large as I can on the screen. So the interface that I wanted operator to go through is the one where I redid it and forced it to go to the correct one where we had all these locations listed out. But from that, as a human, that was my experience. When I went to this page and saw that, I clicked straight in to get this information. I clicked straight into this version. Whereas the first time operator tried it blind, it clicked into the map version. Isn't very helpful for actually getting the addresses out. It's great for visualization, but it's not very helpful for like, you know, copying and pasting this address. So this one, like 481. It's not that helpful because you would then have to, as a person, you would have to scroll around the map and click on the icons and find it. So I was really surprised to see that it actually approached the task in a completely different way, probably because of how it was understanding the screen differently than I was.
That makes a lot of sense. How about you, Dino? What were your expectations? Were they confounded?
I was similar to, I was thinking that I would train it, right? It would screen observe, I would train it, and then I could set it up for something repeatable was what Fergus began with, which is why my disappointment was so stark in the beginning, because it was like, oh, it is just slowly clicking through. I saw it run 6 tabs of the same website and then just kind of give up looking for a plane ticket price that was within the parameters I set. That's because the parameters of the plane ticket can't find a plane ticket for $50, like I said. So trying to give it tasks to see how it overcomes. It still did not ask. We used deep research from ChatGPT. It is asking those clarifying and contextual questions that a lot of the inquiries I was giving it that output would have been richer if it had asked for that context. So I think I need to see it leading the user a little bit more, and that would have helped me. I expected it to do that because of the other tools we've seen. So that was where I really ran into not meeting expectation.
But computer using agents now proliferating. So they've left OpenAI, Azure them in their computing using agents. They're also available to citizen developers and Copilot. Based on what you learn, what use cases do you think this technology might be good for? You're quite a lot.
Yes, I think I'm really limited in seeing what it can be actually useful for. However, I don't think any of us have the type of job where we are doing the same things over and over again all day long. We're not entering data. We're not, looking up, maybe slots in calendars day in, day out. It's the repetitive parts of our job are less impactful. The things I can see it working for, therefore, are maybe like customer service agents who don't have the ability to code and fix things with an API, but are interacting with some system day in, day out in the same way. And they would know that if they said, operator, please enter these details that I've captured from the phone or something, that it would be done and it would be done correctly. And they have the confidence because it's like a known process that they can show operator. That's where I kind of see it having a big impact in the short term. I think in the longer term, the models will get better. The way that it interacts with the user will get better. So we'll be able to do more of the things that we have been looking at. But I do have a specific concern, which I can show you an example of, around like interacting with useful systems. So I tried to get it to read my webmail. You can see that we actually secure our webmail by the use of certificates and trusted hardware, and I don't know exactly how it works. But because Operator is running on a Linux device somewhere on an OpenAI server, I can't actually certify that the browser has a legitimate connection. I mean, arguably it doesn't have a legitimate connection to be using my email. Yeah. But I can't install the necessary certificates on the system to actually let it into my email. So already that's problematic for people trying to do repetitive tasks at work. They may hit that barrier pretty quickly.
What about you, Dan?
I like to see it able to fully audit and I guess test, right? To look at we can use accessibility as a parameter for it, review our webpage for accessibility features, review the design of what we're walking through as far as a tool we've built, and have it actually execute and do that. Similar to Fergus, I brought an example of where I really wanted what I wanted it to look like and what I was hoping it could do. I don't know if you can see this browser.
Yep, we can see that.
This is one playing Pokemon. And it's playing Pokemon really slowly, but you can see over here in the dialog box, Claude's identifying I'm at position 9-7, right? They try to move, Claude tries to use, the menu, tries to exit. It's been trapped in this corner for like 10 minutes. So it's not a great example of what it could do. It's really because that character behind the main character keeps moving and blocking Claude in every time he tries to move.
And it's trying to escape.
So I watch this pretty frequently, right? To see what the model is thinking, how it's narrating, how it's interacting with the environment of the game of Pokemon, because it teaches me quite a bit about what's going on under the hood when we're asking tools like Operator to do similar things in different environments, right? It is looking at what the screen is. It does understand specifically the parameters of this game, though. It's a game. It's a sanitized environment.
Really interesting how it's named the characters as well, the various names.
So for me, it is, even if it could get a little bit closer to this, I would feel a little bit better. But this is still not the best case scenario of where it could be. I'm excited to see, let's call it 6 months from now, where potentially Claude gets out of that corner, right? And Operator can book me a ticket.
Makes sense. I think I'm very similar. Expanding on your idea of testing, if I think about the roles of a business analyst or a tester, and the fact that user stories should be very well written and scoped for people to be able to build functionality, and given what we saw with you, Fergus, where in the FedEx example, someone opened up the map and they didn't go to where you expected, I think these agents are a really good way to test out websites and interfaces, because it will show all the various different ways that users might do things that we don't expect, but at presumably a much cheaper way of doing things.
So more like a sort of a UX interview type scenario where you asking the AI to do something and seeing where it leads.
Because a user could have done that. I could imagine, like, no shade to my mum, but I could imagine my mum going to the map and the list. So
we'll send that out.
I'll say that clip.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap?
I think that the gaming example is super interesting because we did some early research looking at how agents can look at screens and make decisions based on games that actually it didn't work too well when an individual agent is working alone based on screen input or based on more information. So in that Pokemon example, you might have some more information from the game itself, like coordinates and mapping and things like that. But they work really well when you start piecing them together in more of like a multi-agentic scenario. So I think maybe the future could be a little bit more, as Diana mentioned, some of the features are there within the deep research functionality. Some of the features are there within you switching between different models, understanding that 4.5 is good at some things and 4.0 is better at others. So I think that is really hopefully where some of this stuff can improve. But for me, that'll be the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, in that when we actually get access to be able to develop computer using agents into other systems that we already have more control over than we do operator.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're kind of saying the technology is here, but we need to see how we can integrate it with other things that we already have.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because we need more control over what the technology is doing and how to kind of tweak it.
And we've seen that in our own research, where when we looked at our agents, it is the ones that are able to get that repeatable little, even if it's a small amount of time savings over time, they end up being favored in aggregate, right? Like the amount that it can do is because it's embedded in our process. It's part of what we need to accomplish and it's scope to that. So I think when we start to really, free them from the constraints of OpenAI's platforms and put them where we actually need them to do work, that's where we're going to start to see the difference, because then we can train them differently as well.
I can see us in a few months' time on computing as the agents. Well, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And speak to you soon. Catch you in a bit.
Yeah.